I am the person that invented infinite scroll. Um, and it's that thing that when you scroll, it just keeps loading more.
Yes.
And it's not so big of invention that obviously it wouldn't be invented many times. I just happen to be the person that did it. But it's very instructive. I learned a lot because, I can never remember the calculation, but it is millions of human lifetimes that are lost, whether it's a month or every year, due to this invention. And when I invented it, I was thinking about individual users. I was thinking about how do I make things more efficient? And I was using it before the time of social media. So there it was just search results and blog posts. And of course, I want the user to be able to find more because if they scroll and they haven't found what they're looking for, that just means show them more. And I was
Mm,
blind to the way that that technology would be picked up and used not to help people, but to keep people. And it gets sucked up by the incentives, the perverse incentives of the need for a knife fight for attention that has ended up taking that beautiful idea and subverting it. And this sort of leads to the general feeling that I have, which is technology could be helping us live in the most beautiful possible world. But because it consistently gets captured by perverse incentives, we end up living in one of the most parasitic possible worlds. And that's not a
mm,
thing that any of us want.
right. And so you say social media wasn't really around when you invented this. So what was the original use case for the scroll? Like what interface was that originally living
Mm.
in?
Um, so if people cast their minds back, this is the era of MapQuest, where you had to click a
Mm,
button and then the map would move over, but you had to do a page refresh. And a new technology called Ajax came out. Google Maps started to do their first, like you could just drag and pan a map. Um, and that technology was like, well, obviously this can be used to, if I get to the bottom of the page, just load some more. And actually, I went around, I gave a whole bunch of talks at like Twitter and Google and tried to get everyone to start doing this because every time as a designer, you've asked the user to make a choice they don't care about, you failed. At least that was my ideology back then. And so this is really about search results. If you search on Amazon or Google and you scroll to the bottom, you haven't seen what you're looking for, just load some more. Don't make me click next. It was really that simple. It was the blog post. I was scrolling down to the bottom of my blog and you'd reach the end and people wouldn't click the little next button. So I'm like, well, but that's good content. Load some more. This was 2006. So it was just prior to Facebook and all the other companies really starting to do their big push.
So did you have to click next on the page when reading a blog before this
Yeah.
then?
Yeah. There's a little button at
Wow.
the end that said next
Okay.
and previous. And remember that Google thing where at the end of Google search results, it goes Google.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to click the
Mm-hmm.
next button down there. That's what I was trying to replace. It just seemed
I see.
senseless.
Yeah, it's just so interesting. So at some point within the social media use case, algorithms started determining what gets queued up next.
Hmm.
So I'm curious if you know like when that shift happened, because for a while, I think a lot of us using social media, myself included, thought, we're just seeing a chronological feed of what we've subscribed to. Or if not that, maybe it's a little bit more, maybe there's a little bit more of a methodology to what you're showing me. But at the end of the day, this is what I've agreed to see. And it seems like little by little that has changed. And now we're lucky if we see our own friends on any given feed. So I'm curious if there was a specific moment when platforms decided to prioritize algorithmic recommendations over the sort of simple chronological feed that Infinite Scroll was originally being used for.
Yeah. It's been a little bit. So I don't remember whether it was 2012, 2013, but it was around that time that
Mm,
there's a switch from chronological to algorithmic. And it felt like people were inventing and like coming up with new features um, to make to make social media more engaging for users. But looking back, you can tell that there's sort of an inevitability to this because, the attention economy, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product, as the saying goes, then there will be a zero-sum knife fight for your attention. Because what is the business model of whether it's Google or Instagram or TikTok? It is the small, imperceptible shift to your behavior over time that is the product. That is what they're selling, right? People call it ads, but it's much deeper than that. It's the ability to shift your behavior over time and monetize that shift in behavior that is their business model. And once you see it that way, you understand that there is a race to the bottom of the brainstem for your attention. And that means instead of just showing your posts as they are most helpful to you, there's going to be an algorithm that is showing the post that keeps you around the most and gets the most engagement from you. And it's actually very simple that if you are training a population on an algorithm that is meant for getting your reaction, it makes the entire population more reactive. And a lot of what we are seeing today in terms of both mental health issues, the deep polarization of society, the inability to have conversations across divides is all a very predictable outcome of an algorithm trained to make us more reactive.
So when you say it goes beyond ads, and I understand your concept of it's we're asking for more reactions. Well, I say we, I'm saying, big tech. They're
Yeah.
asking for more reactions. It's making the rest of society more reactive. But is there an incentive beyond ad impressions? I'm coming from the marketing world, so my brain says it's all so that they can sell more expensive ad placements. But is there something a little bit deeper than that that's at play?
Yeah. Well, in the end, right? If I don't get your attention, somebody else does. I don't have the ability to sell you an ad. Um, but I also don't have the ability to just keep you around. And remember, valuations of companies are not just ad revenue, it's about user engagement and daily active users. So if your stock price is tied to how much time a user spends on your platform and how engaged they are, that's an even deeper incentive than just selling ads. So the entirety of your company is now going to be set up to have bonuses centered around getting more engagement and attention. It's going to have promotion structures centered around that. Features are going to be designed for anything that has even a side effect of getting people to engage more, right? Facebook pages are a perfect example of this. They're not exactly about selling ads, but it's about creating affinity groups that get people to come back. And you can see this because, Frances Haugen, the famous Facebook whistleblower,
Mm.
In her disclosures, she discovered that Facebook had found one thing that they could do that would do more to fight misinformation, disinformation, hate speech, incitement to violence, all the bad stuff. There was one thing they could do that would do more than the tens of billions of dollars that they're spending on content moderation. You know what that one thing was? It was just to remove the reshare button after 2 shares. So I'd share it to you, you'd share it to somebody else, and the reshare button would go away. No censorship, right? You can always copy and paste and send it further on. It was just adding a little bit of friction. And that had more effect than the tens of billions of dollars they were spending on content moderation. And even though they knew that, they would not implement it. Why? Because it hurt engagement numbers. And that's why it's deeper than just selling ads. Because if you thought just selling ads, you'd say, well, obviously having content that promotes hate or violence, advertisers aren't going to be sitting along next side of that. So obviously they'll just implement it, but that's not what they did. The even deeper incentive, just to go one more layer, is this is existential for the companies. User attention is existential. And it's zero sum, right? This is how Reed Hastings from Netflix says their chief competitor is sleep, that they're competing with sleep for user attention. And that's because there's only so much time in your life. And if TikTok gets your time, that'll come at the expense of YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. And so they're all now vying for their continued existence by figuring out how to get lower on the brainstem.
You mentioned you personally got off of Instagram and Facebook, I think. Have you personally faced any challenges in maintaining a mindful relationship with technology?
I think it's very important for everyone to know that even when you know how it all works, it doesn't make you immune.
Mm.
Like I invented infinite scroll. I know exactly what it's doing. And yet I can still get caught doom scrolling or just laying in bed and like watching stuff go by because it feels like I'm educating myself, but really what I'm doing is making myself more disconnected and lonely.
Mm.
So I want everyone to like really hear that because the first place we all go, I think, is self-blame. Like I don't have enough control. And that's just not the way to go. There are tens to thousands of engineers on the other side of every screen you look at with a supercomputer trained to try to find and exploit your vulnerabilities.
Mm.
And so there's a lot of compassion we need to have for ourselves.
Watch or listen to the full episode on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen.